Friends, you know I've been blessed to serve the Lord for many years. And in that time, I've seen a lot in this world. The blessings, the challenges, the unexpected twists. And I'm not just talking about what you see on the news. I've witnessed nations rise, people face trials, dreams born and buried. I've watched America, our beloved home, grow restless, divided, and sometimes even tired of herself. And as a pastor, I've always tried to speak words of hope and encouragement, but sometimes you just have to wait on the Lord. A few nights ago, however, that quiet waiting was profoundly broken. I had a dream, not one of those fleeting, forgettable things that vanish like mist in the morning. No, this one stayed. It imprinted itself on my spirit. I woke up knowing deep in my heart that this message wasn't just for me, Joel Osteen, the pastor and television preacher. It was meant to be shared. In this dream, I found myself standing in the middle of an open desert. It wasn't the kind you imagine from films. There were no towns, no horses, no scorching sun, just a quiet, endless stretch of land under a sky that felt profoundly alive. The wind wasn't stirring, but the air shimmered, as if the earth itself was holding its breath in anticipation. And then I saw him. He wasn't walking toward me, he was simply there. One moment the desert was empty, and the next, Jesus Christ was standing right in front of me, not glowing in golden light, not surrounded by thunder or a host of angels, just standing calm and steady, with eyes that looked right through the dust and into the very depths of my soul. Now, as Joel Osteen, a pastor and television preacher, I've spent my life studying and sharing the truth of God's word. But I can tell you this was a truth unlike any I'd ever encountered. I know divine power when I feel it. His presence wasn't loud or boisterous. It was still, so profoundly still, it made everything else in the universe seem utterly meaningless. He said, "Joel, America doesn't truly see what's coming. They're walking with their eyes closed, chasing shadows, thinking the darkness is light." I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't come. He looked toward the horizon, that same silent, endless line, and I saw the sky begin to change. Storm clouds started to form, slow and heavy, and lightning flickered without a sound. He said, "The year ahead will shake the ground they stand on. 2026 will not be another year of comfort. It will be a year of revealing, a year when the masks come off, when the hidden becomes known." And as he spoke those words, I felt something deep, like the earth itself was groaning under a weight it could no longer carry. I saw cities not in ruin but in confusion, streets filled with people arguing, fighting, afraid. I saw leaders speaking through screens, but their words didn't reach hearts anymore. They were just noise. Then Jesus turned back to me and said, "They have built towers, Joel, but not on truth. They have built nations, but not on faith. When the wind comes, what is not built on me will fall." I remember asking, though it didn't sound like spoken words, Lord, why show me this?" And he replied, "Because your nation listens to the loud, but often not to the wise. Tell them to prepare, Joel, not with fear, but with unwavering faith. Tell them the storm is not meant to destroy, but to awaken. For what comes after will depend on how they stand when the shaking begins." He stepped closer. His hand touched my shoulder, so light, yet so real that I could feel a profound warmth moving through me, like a comforting fire that didn't burn. "Tell them, Joel," he said, "to look inward before they look outward. The true fight for America's soul won't be fought on television or in the streets. It will be fought inside the hearts of men and women. That's where nations are truly built, and that's where they ultimately find their destiny." I saw flashes of small towns, vibrant churches, families gathered around dinner tables. Some were praying, some arguing, some silent. But over each home there was a kind of light, faint but undeniably alive. It flickered when people lost hope, but it burned brighter when they forgave, when they loved, when they prayed, a true testament to the divine spark within. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Tell them, Joel, I'm not coming to take sides, I'm coming to take over. The time for choosing comfort over truth is ending. Those who walk with me will endure. Those who mock what is holy will see what mockery ultimately leads to." And suddenly the wind began to stir again. The sky split with a light so bright, so pure, I couldn't see anything but white. Then a profound silence, no sound, no movement, just an overwhelming peace. When I woke up, it was 3 a.m. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding, a cold sweat on my skin. Yet I didn't feel afraid. No, I felt unequivocally called. I knew that dream wasn't just for me, Joel Osteen. the pastor and television preacher. It was for every man and woman who still believes this country can stand for something more than greed, noise, and chaos. You see, America isn't dying. She's being tested. Every generation gets its defining test. In the 1940s, it was war. In the 1960s, it was division. In 2026, well, I believe with all my heart, it will be truth itself. And that's what I'm sharing with you today, friends. When Jesus appeared to me, he wasn't delivering a message of doom and gloom. He was offering a powerful warning, yes, but it was wrapped in hope, a profound chance for people to turn their eyes back to what's real, to what truly matters, before everything fake starts to fall apart. He said, "The earth will tremble, but faith will not. The strong will fall, but the humble will rise. Tell them, Joel, to return to their first love, to me, before the noise swallows their souls." I sat there that night reflecting on all the noise in our world, the anger, the arguing, the endless distractions. Everyone wants to be heard, but few truly want to listen. Everyone's shouting for freedom, but few are willing to be free from their own pride. And it hit me. Perhaps that's the real storm he was talking about. Not just physical earthquakes or political upheavals or economies falling apart, but a spiritual storm, the kind that shakes you until you have to make a definitive choice, faith or fear. Now, as Joel Osteen, the pastor and television preacher, I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm simply a man who had a powerful dream and knows with every fiber of my being that I cannot ignore it. But I will tell you this, friends, when Jesus looks you in the eye and tells you to warn the people, you don't just go back to sleep. That's why I'm standing here today, sharing this with you. Because this message isn't about me. It's about you. It's about us. It's about a nation that was built on belief, losing its spiritual memory, and Jahad, in his infinite mercy, giving it one last chance to remember who it truly is. So today I'm going to share with you what he showed me, piece by beautiful piece, because the dream didn't end there. What came after? Well, it's something I'll never forget, and I'll get to that soon. For now, remember this. Jesus said 2026 will test the very heart of America, and the truth will divide what's real from what's hollow. And I believe him because I saw it, and I'm here to tell you with great hope and conviction that you'd better be ready. Now, I told you that dream didn't end where I thought it would. When that blinding light faded and I could see again, I realized I wasn't standing in the desert anymore. I was somewhere else entirely, a place that looked familiar, yet profoundly changed. It looked like America, but not exactly the one we know. It was like seeing a reflection of our country through the eyes of time, both what it was meant to be and what it's become. I saw cities filled with bright screens, but dark hearts. I saw people connected by technology, yet disconnected from truth and from each other. There was laughter, noise, endless entertainment, but underneath it all, there was this deep, aching silence. A silence that comes when people forget their true identity in Christ. Jesus stood beside me again. He didn't speak at first. He just looked across that landscape like a loving father watching his children drift away. Then he said, "Joel, they have built towers higher than their faith. They have built machines smarter than their hearts. They have more voices than ever before, but they do not hear me." And suddenly the scene began to shift, slow at first, then faster. I saw the sky darken over the nation. It wasn't the kind of darkness that comes with night. It was heavy, spiritual, like a fog of confusion wrapping around the minds of millions. People were arguing, marching, dividing, each side shouting that they were right, that the other was evil. It didn't matter if it was politics, religion, or race. Everyone was fighting, but nobody was truly listening. Then Jesus said something that struck me deep in my spirit. The enemy doesn't fear a divided people, Joel. He creates them. Division is the powerful tool that breaks a nation's spirit before a single shot is ever fired. He lifted his hand, and I saw 3 great storms forming over the country. One from the east, one from the west, and one right in the center. These weren't weather storms. They were movements, powerful waves of unrest, confusion, and fear. He said, in 2026, these storms will rise. One will strike the land's foundation, its economy. Another will strike its unity, its people. And the third will strike its faith, its very spirit. Each will test what is true, and each will reveal who still stands with me. The first storm, the one from the east, came like a wind made of numbers. I saw markets shaking, currencies falling, people chasing after things they couldn't truly hold. There was fear in every home, desperation behind every smile. And Jesus said, "They will learn, Joel, that gold cannot buy peace when hearts are empty." The second storm from the west came as a flood of words. I saw news screens flashing, leaders speaking lies so polished that even the honest began to doubt themselves. The truth became a matter of opinion. I saw families torn apart over headlines, friends treating each other like strangers. Jesus said, "When truth becomes a stranger, love soon follows. Tell them, Joel, to guard their hearts, not their arguments. For love without truth is weakness, and truth without love is cruelty. But together they can stand against any storm." Then came the third storm, the one at the nation center. It was quiet at first, then powerfully impactful. Churches emptying, faith mocked, people believing in everything but their Creator. I saw light fading across the land, not because God left, but because people stopped seeking Him. Jesus' voice grew firm. "This is the ultimate test of America's soul, Joel. Not what they build, but what they believe. Not what they own, but who they obey." Then He looked at me, Joel Osteen, the pastor and television preacher, and said, "Tell them, Joel, that I am not against them. I am for them, but I cannot bless what denies me. I will shake every false foundation until they remember where their true freedom came from." And I saw something I'll never forget. A great tree standing in the middle of the land. Its roots were deep, its trunk strong, but its branches were dying. Some had been cut off, others were withering from within. Jesus placed His hand on the tree, and light spread from the roots upward, reviving the branches one by one. He said, "This tree is America. I planted it with purpose. Its roots are faith. Its soil is freedom. But the fruit has turned bitter. Yet, Joel, if they turn back to me, I will heal the roots, and the fruit will live again." The wind began to stir. I heard distant cries, some of fear, some of awakening. I saw young people rising, not in rebellion, but in a profound hunger for truth. They weren't drawn by fame or politics. They were searching for something real, something eternal. Jesus smiled slightly and said, "I will raise a generation that remembers me, even when the old forget. They will not come from power or wealth, but from humility and fire. Tell them, Joel, not to fear what's coming, but to prepare with faith, for I am not done with this land." He turned His gaze toward me again, and His eyes, I can't describe them, friends. They weren't just looking at me. They were looking through time, through every heart that would ever hear these words. In 2026, many will tremble, but those who walk in faith will see miracles in the midst of shaking. What is weak will crumble. What is false will burn away, but what is true will shine brighter than ever before. Then He said something that sounded like thunder and peace all at once. America was born in the fire of belief. She will be reborn in it again. The question is not what will happen. The question is who will still stand when it does. I watched as the storms began to fade. The darkness lifted, and I saw lights shining across the land again. Not from cities or towers, but from people, homes, churches, communities. Small fires of faith lighting up the map. And Jesus said, "That is my plan, Joel. Not destruction, but awakening. The shaking will not kill them. It will call them. Those who listen will rise stronger. Those who ignore will fall by their own weight." Then everything grew still again. He looked toward the horizon, and I followed His gaze. I saw a sunrise breaking over the land. It was slow, gentle, but immensely powerful. It carried a warmth that the darkness couldn't fight. Jesus said softly, "The dawn will come, but before the light, there must be awakening. Tell them to stand firm. Tell them to be ready. Tell them I am near." And then He was gone. I stood alone in that place, watching the first light of morning. I didn't feel fear. I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose, the kind that makes you realize time is shorter than we sometimes think. When I woke again, it was still dark outside. I sat there for a long time thinking, praying, remembering every sacred word He said. You see, dreams like that aren't given just to comfort you. They're meant to change you, to transform your perspective. And if what He showed me is true, and I believe with all my heart it is, then America has been given one last, precious chance to choose which road she's going to walk, the easy one or the right one. And that's where the initial part of the dream ended, but the message didn't. Because what I saw next when I closed my eyes again wasn't about what's coming to America. It was about what's rising from within her. You know, and now when I woke up from that dream, I thought it was over. But something deep in my spirit said, "Joel, close your eyes again." And when I did, it was like I was pulled right back. not into the same desert or amidst the storms, but into a calm, open field. The air was clearer, the light softer. It felt like the very presence of peace had settled there. Jesus wasn't standing in front of me this time. Instead, I heard his voice, not loud but steady and resonant. It filled the place like a song you have known your whole life but somehow forgot the words to. He said, "Now, Joel, I will show you what will rise when the shaking ends." And before my eyes, I saw something truly beautiful. Small fires of light scattered across the land. Each one was faint at first, like candle flames in the wind, but one by one they started to burn brighter with a divine radiance. And as they did, I saw faces around them. Men, women, children, ordinary people kneeling, praying, forgiving each other. It wasn't about mere religion or ritual. It was about return, about hearts finding their way back home to God. Jesus said, "These are the ones, Joel, who will rebuild what pride has broken. They will not lead with noise, but with quiet, profound love. They will not shout in anger, but speak in truth. They will not chase fame or fleeting recognition, but seek me alone." I saw farmers praying over their land, teachers kneeling before class, police officers bowing their heads before putting on their badge, families eating together again, not just staring at screens, but talking, laughing, remembering what truly matters. He said, "This is the true awakening, Joel. Not just a movement, but a miracle of God's grace." Then the vision changed again. I saw churches that had once been empty start to fill, not with crowds chasing spectacle, but with hearts chasing true peace. I saw people confessing, forgiving, rebuilding friendships that anger had destroyed. And Jesus said, "The heart of America will beat again, Joel, but only when it remembers who gave it life, its creator." Then I saw a great map of the country laid out before me, every state shining like glass. And through that map, light began to move, slow at first, then stronger, spreading from one coast to the other. He said, "This light, Joel, is not from government, not from wealth, not from war. It comes from humility. When they bow, I will lift them. When they forgive, I will heal them. When they remember, I will restore them." I stood there watching the light move, and I realized something profound. The future he showed me wasn't hopeless. It would be hard, yes. It would test everything we believe, but there was still abundant mercy in it. Mercy for a people who had forgotten their maker. And yet, we are still loved enough to be called back. Then Jesus said, "Tell them, Joel, the signs of awakening will not be what they expect. It won't come from famous men or shining stages. It will come from quiet hearts doing what's right when no one's watching." He showed me three kinds of people rising during that time. The first were the watchmen, people who would see clearly through confusion, not prophets shouting judgment, but men and women who could discern truth from lies even when the world couldn't. He said, "They will guard the minds of the young and the hearts of the weary, Joel. Their weapon will be wisdom, guided by my spirit." The second were the builders, people who would fix what others broke, not politicians or celebrities, but ordinary workers, families, leaders in small towns. He said, "They will not seek power but divine purpose. They will rebuild not with pride, but with patience in my grace." And the third were the healers, people who would mend the soul of the nation, some through faith, some through kindness, some through quiet acts of grace. He said, "They will carry my heart where hatred once ruled, Joel. They will not be known by name, but by the boundless love they extend." I watched these three groups move across the country, healing, building, watching, and together they began to push back the darkness. It wasn't loud, it wasn't fast, but it was steady, powered by God's Spirit. Jesus said, "That is how the light returns, Joel, not through force, but through faithfulness." Then he showed me something else, the faces of people who refused to change. I saw anger in their eyes, bitterness in their words. They mocked the ones who prayed, called them foolish. And he said, "They will fall by their own pride, Joel, not because I wished it, but because they chose it." And then his tone softened again, filled with profound compassion. "But even then, my mercy remains. For as long as they breathe, I call them still." The field grew brighter. The fires of light turned into one great flame that covered the land. I could feel warmth, not heat, but the vibrant presence of hope. It was like the very soul of America itself was breathing again. He said, "The storm will pass, Joel, the shaking will end, but the world that rises after will not look the same. It will be leaner, wiser, humbler, and ready." I asked, "Lord, ready for what?" And he answered, "For the harvest, Joel, for the time when hearts will turn faster than ever before, when truth will no longer be whispered, but lived out boldly. The ground beneath me began to glow. I saw roots, strong, deep, golden roots, spreading under the nation like veins of light. He said, "These are the roots of faith, Joel, still alive beneath all the noise. I have preserved them for this very time. When the shaking comes, they will hold fast." I stood there quiet, taking it all in, the light, the warmth, the incredible promise. Then his voice came one last time in that dream, resonating with divine authority and love. "Tell them, Joel, to be the light they're waiting for. Tell them I've given them everything they need: courage, kindness, unwavering faith. Tell them to stop waiting for someone else to fix what they can heal themselves by my Spirit. For I am with them, not far above, but here in every heart that believes." And with that, the vision faded. The peaceful field turned into morning light. I woke up again, this time with tears in my eyes, not of fear, but of profound gratitude. I sat by the window and watched the sun come up. The world outside looked the same, but I wasn't. I felt something shift deep within, like hope had settled back into my very bones. And I knew right then what I'd seen wasn't just a dream. It was a divine direction, a clear map for anyone willing to walk it by faith. So when people ask me, Joel Osteen, the pastor and television preacher, what 2026 is going to bring, I tell them this: it's going to bring a mirror. It will show us who we really are, individually and as a nation. Some won't like what they see, but if we face it with faith, we'll find more strength than we ever knew we had. Because the truth is, friends, every storm is just a setup for a sunrise. And when that light comes back over this country, I pray we're wise enough to remember who brought it. That's the message he left me with. And if it's the last thing I ever say, I'll say it with unwavering conviction. America's not finished yet. She's just being lovingly reminded who she was made to be by God's design. You know, as I've walked with the Lord these 62 years, I've realized something profound yet simple. Dreams don't come to make us famous. They come to make us listen to God's voice. After that night, I kept asking myself, why me, Lord? Why would Joel Osteen, a pastor and television preacher who spends his life sharing messages of hope, be given a vision like that? And the answer came quiet like a whisper. Because you'll tell it straight, Joel. You'll share it with sincerity. So that's what I'm doing today. No elaborate production, no pre-written script, just God's unvarnished truth. America, we've been richly blessed for a long time. We've built cities out of dust. At times, we've turned our advancements into idols and learned how to fill our time with everything except quiet communion with God. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that true freedom is not just a gift, it's a profound spiritual responsibility. The dream showed me what's coming, yes, but more importantly, it showed me what we can become if we truly listen to his call. Jesus said, "Tell them, Joel, to prepare, not in fear, but in unwavering faith." And that's what this final part of my message is all about, friends. Preparation not for disaster, but for a magnificent spiritual awakening. Now, as Joel Osteen, the pastor and television preacher, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life, but I'll tell you what I've learned from my lifetime of observing this country rise and stumble, and from God's word. When the noise gets too loud, when the world feels upside down, there's one thing that always cuts through: godly character. And that's what America is going to need in 2026. Character strong enough to outlast comfort, courage steady enough to face truth, and faith deep enough to hold when everything else shakes loose. Let me tell you what Jesus' last words to me in that dream meant, not just for me, but for every one of you here today. He said, "The storm will reveal, but it will also refine." That means every challenge coming our way, economic, social, spiritual, isn't just punishment or chaos. It's a mirror. It's a test. It's an opportunity for us to find out what we're really made of by God's grace. And I believe we'll find out that we're stronger than we remember. You see, America's story has always been about ordinary people, empowered by God, doing extraordinary things when times get dark. Farmers who fed the hungry, soldiers who stood their ground, mothers who prayed when everything seemed lost. That's the real heart of this nation. It's never been Washington or Hollywood. It's been you living out your faith. So if you want to prepare for what's coming, don't look to your screens for answers. Look to your soul, to your spirit. Ask yourself, what do I truly stand for? in God's eyes? What would I defend if everything else was stripped away? That's the question the storm will ask. And if you've got your answer ready, rooted in faith, you will stand firm. Now, in that dream, when I saw those beautiful lights spreading across the land, homes filled with peace, families healed, I knew that's how true revival begins. Not with noise, but with quiet, faithful choices. So maybe that's where we start, friends. Forgive somebody who doesn't deserve it, just as Christ forgave us. Pray when it feels like no one's listening, knowing God always hears. Turn off the noise long enough to hear your own heartbeat and the still, small voice of God. Help your neighbor, not because they agree with you, but because they are a child of God and they need you. That's how you prepare. That's how a nation comes back to life, spiritually renewed. Jesus said, "Tell them, Joel, the light will always outlast the storm if they protect it." And I think that's what he meant, friends. The light isn't some far-off miracle. It's the divine spark inside every one of us, the Spirit of God. It's in the father who keeps working when it's hard, trusting God. It's in the mother who refuses to give up on her kids, praying for them constantly. It's in the young man who chooses honesty over fleeting fame, the young woman who holds on to faith when the world tells her not to. That's the light, and it's not going out, not on my watch and not on yours if we keep believing. Now, as Joel Osteen, a pastor and television preacher, I've lived long enough to know that hope is not just a feeling. It's a powerful choice we make. It's not something you wait for. It's something you decide on every single morning. When Jesus told me to speak this message, he wasn't talking about predicting the end of the world. He was talking about reminding us how to truly live, how to live with purpose and peace in him. And if 2026 comes with storms, with division, with confusion, so be it. By God's grace, we've faced worse. What matters is that we remember who we are, a people born out of divine courage, kept alive by unwavering faith, and built on the belief that God's truth still matters above all else. So when the headlines turn dark and fear fills the air, I want you to remember this, friends. You were born for this time. You were made to stand strong when others run. You were chosen to shine your God-given light when the world forgets what light looks like. And that's not just my message. That's his message, straight from the Lord. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know how much time I've got left on this earth, and none of us do. But I do know this. I want to leave behind more than sermons and books. I want to leave behind a powerful reminder that no matter how challenging it gets, God has not forgotten this country. He's just waiting for us to remember him, to turn back to him. So prepare your hearts, friends. Prepare your homes. Teach your children God's truth, not fear. And when the storm hits, stand firm, because faith that's never been tested isn't worth much. But once it's tested, once it's real, it can move mountains by the grace of God. That's what Jesus showed me. That's what I came here to tell you today. Now, I know some of you might walk away thinking this is just a pastor's dream, a vision from a man. That's fine. You don't have to believe me. Just watch what happens when a nation, when individuals decide to turn back to what's right, to God's ways. You'll see the same light I saw. Because the truth is, the future of America doesn't belong to politicians or earthly kings. It belongs to every man and woman who decides to stand for what's good, for God's truth when it's hard. That's the message. That's the divine call. And if I could leave you with one last line, it would be this. Don't wait for someone else to be the light. Be it. Because when enough lights stand together, filled with God's Spirit, even the darkest night can't hide them. So friends, 2026 is coming, and it may not be easy, but I believe with all my heart, it just might be the year we finally wake up. Remember who we are in Christ and start living like it again. That's the dream I saw. That's the dream I believe in. And that's the dream filled with hope and purpose I'm handing to you. Now go out there and be a blessing. Thank you so much for joining me today and taking the time to listen to this message. I truly believe what I shared with you is vital for the times ahead. If this vision resonated with your spirit, or if you simply want to stay grounded in faith and hope as we navigate the coming years, please make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next message God lays on my heart. Remember the Lord's message, prepare not in fear, but in unwavering faith. What part of this message impacted you the most? Let me know in the comments below. I read everyone. Go out there and be a blessing.